If you want to make a difference, you need to know what's going on around you. And you can't do that through a textbook.
One of the biggest benefits of academic travel that often goes unspoken is that you're really close to your professors when you have 2 weeks to pick their brain and soak up as much knowledge from them as you can outside of a traditional classroom environment.
Where I come from, that's really not common to leave the country. And so the first thing that I'm excited to tell people about is that I actually went somewhere really cool and learned a lot of really cool things.
One of the very important learning objectives of academic travel is that they learn how to become independent, responsible traveler that really enrich their intellectual life, but also their personal life.
Academic travel started with the founding of Franklin College back in the days when a handful of faculty were teaching courses to a handful of students. And it wasn't unusual for faculty to load up a VW bus and take them to Germany and other parts of Europe. So its origins were in that notion of being a close-knit learning environment.
I wasn't quite sure what academic travel was, but when you went on the first travel, and mine was to southern Italy, you not only bonded with your fellow classmates, but you did so with the professor. Since then, I gladly attended every single academic travel there is.
The origins of Franklin relate also to the international context. Many students that said, let me take time out and study outside the normal constraints of higher education. It posited the learning by doing concept. To go in a library or to sit in the classroom, to hear or to study is one thing. To live it and to be on location and to meet the people, that's another.
The academic travel is using the world as the university campus, using the world as your laboratory for observation, reflection, experimentation. To bring you out from your comfort zone into uncertainty in a natural form, in a natural way in which you grow as a learner at the same time as you're growing as a human being and as a citizen.
The concept of flexibility was built into the travel from the start. We had conceived it as an exploratory experience for all of us. It really does require students to have and/or develop a strong sense of tolerance of ambiguity. We tried to live as close to the conditions of our host.
I reached out to the professors in the beginning of the year when it was time to sign up for classes, and the Madagascar travel actually had a wait list.
The whole trip was just, you woke up in the morning and it felt like you were awake for days because it was just so full of amazing interactions, experiences.
After doing research for many years on these themes, I really thought I wanted to do something more practical, hands-on. The course title is Sustainable Education in Madagascar. So the most important thing is to give the teachers the opportunity to become better teachers and to become independent and to provide better learning opportunities to their students.
This academic travel is an experiential travel. What this travel is supposed to be is about students observing the incredibly fast modernization that Abu Dhabi and Dubai have experienced in the past 40 years. When I first thought about coming to the Middle East, it was actually because a lot of alumni had told me that this would be a very interesting place to experience that.
Some of the things that I learned at Franklin really helped me achieve what I've been able to achieve today.
Earlier today, when we went to the Old Souk and the Gold Souk, I learned a lot about traditional trading, kind of how Dubai has evolved, always as an economic center.
The FUS approach to teaching and learning does stand out from others. One of the things that I really took away from it was the readiness to jump on an airplane and go somewhere new, do something different.
I did know about the academic travel program before I came here because my dad is an alumni here. When he was telling me about this incredible experience in Switzerland, I think that was the #1 thing he said. He still reminisces about his academic travels. Those were the best memories he made at Franklin because it's the most important and unique aspect of the school.
It's not only that we go international places, but we do experience these international places through the intercultural setting of the travel, where you have students from all corners of the world. How everybody experiences a location differently through their own cultural filters and eyes. This is what makes Franklin's academic travel truly international and intercultural.
Expose students to unfamiliar cultures, to different practices, different foods, different ways of doing things.
Traveling is such a unique experience, especially in the context of Franklin, because you get to bond with so many different people from so many different cultures all around the world and really have that one-on-one experience with the professor that most universities don't necessarily offer.
The courses that we teach in Lugano should cover the theory, should present the foundation, the basis of what the students should learn. Academic travel is a fantastic way then to add muscles to that skeleton, to actually get into and see how the theories actually work in the real life.
Something that's so amazing about the academic travel program is that you get to actually go to these places that you've heard about for your whole life. And then it gives you the perfect opportunity to explore them in a focused way. Greece is a really interesting place because there's so much mythology and history behind it. Just being there made all of the stories feel so much more placed and grounded.
So I wanted to start with a non-literary rereading of the past, which showed us very clearly how very political stories can be, even if they're architectural stories or stories told in stone.
In class, we analyze the Odyssey. We learn much about ancient but also still contemporary Greek traditions. The academic travel portion of this is critical to the understanding of these texts because you're going to the very source of the classics, where they were written, what the authors would have seen, what they would have experienced, and how they would have interpreted the world.
These ostensibly dry and dusty texts, they're difficult to approach, but once you see the vividness of the world in which they were created, then you begin to feel a greater investment in their interpretation.
The professors, when they choose to do travels, it's mostly on things they're really interested in. Getting to see them get excited about the things that they're showing us is really fun.
The travel definitely destroyed my prior ideas of what Greece actually looked like. Being in Athens was incredibly illuminating. I don't think any prior image that I had in mind managed to encapsulate that.
Athens is not only a site of archaeological and antique interest, but also a modern, vibrant city in which people are experiencing some of the same problems that we read about in the classical texts, and some very new problems indeed.
Can't study the classics and storytelling during the classics as though it were divorced from what's going on today. And so we asked the artist, Anna, to show us her Greece, her Athens.
I'm a sculptor, I work with my hands, but at one point of what was happening in Greece, I felt that objects alone could not say the story.
We had conversations about the meaning of some of the artwork that were painted on the sides of the buildings.
The encounter with people, that is what I think in the end makes the big difference. We, the professors, cannot possibly supply the richness that the actual physical context enables them to experience.
We try to have destinations that are sympathetic to the values of the university. Experiential education certainly being one of them. Taking the classroom, the theoretical, more abstract aspects, and grounding it into being on the road, experiencing cultures, experiencing sustainability.
We are traveling to Madagascar, we are visiting schools, we are organizing workshops in the schools of reciprocal learning where you Franklin students are trying to exchange with the Malagasy students.
I was able to watch my professor really make an impact in the lives of people.
I think my favorite moment was one day we were staying in this village. They decided they were going to have kind of a village-wide teachers versus kids soccer game. We played a full game of 11v11 soccer with the ref and everything. So everybody was having a great time playing soccer, and even though my French isn't that good and we couldn't really communicate, it all kind of came through the ball and we were able to communicate with each other through sports.
Florence, Milan, for many students, it's not their first time going to these cities. And I also have students from Italy coming to my travel. This is a good indication that the students are choosing their academic travel not because of the destination, not just to go to a place that they've never been to, but just to learn. This is one way to definitely distinguish academic travel as a learning experience rather than just being there as a tourist.
So our students at Franklin start studying Italian usually in their first semesters. The opportunity to visit cities like Florence, Padova, Verona, Venice, and here we are in Sicily are important because they bring alive what students have been studying in books since they were freshmen. For this class, we looked at some of the contradictions, the struggles that Italians face through political history, economics, and films, and Sicily is a perfect place to study those contradictions and those struggles. One of the main objectives of the trip is to make the invisible visible.
So today we visited Mafia Museum in Corleone in Sicilia. It gives you a completely different perspective on your knowledge and on your impressions from the readings. It wasn't romanticized.
I do think that students need to craft their own experience. My philosophy is I offer a lot of things, and whatever they, choose to take away is their decision. They shape their own experience.
I'm excited to see even what it's like, outside of its Godfather-esque identity. And that has been a very gratifying part of it, to be able to not feel like tourists, but more like enriched visitors.
It's a critical reading course, but we're using, instead of the classroom or books, we're using Palermo as our text.
I thought to go to Venice because near Venice, in Roncade, there is H-Farm, the biggest innovation center in Italy and one of the biggest and most important in Europe. The academic travel of digital entrepreneurship is about how to have the proper mindset for being a digital entrepreneur, how the digital environment works, which are the rules of this specific digital world.
The day started with the professor who was giving us constructive feedback on our startup projects. It's absolutely great to see how all of these aspects of digital entrepreneurship come together to, form a story of its own.
My students, for the digital entrepreneurship course, had to develop a digital entrepreneurial idea to be pitched in the very end of the course as a final assignment. It was a great experiential moment. This pitch in front of a man or a professional, an expert, a professor, and someone who is in the front line in the startup growth process.
During the first part of the class, we shared some ideas about how to create a sustainable business model using innovation. And in the second part of the class, students presented their own ideas for a startup.
He was very constructive, yes, but also critical, because we need honest opinions on our ideas. I think he gave us a feel of what it might feel like to actually start a startup and ask us some questions that we should ask ourselves as well. One of the things emphasized was that if you can get your point across with less words but powerful imagery, that can do so much for a business.
To bring the best possible person to society. That has always been the first principle that has sustained the educational model and the educational reason for Franklin to exist. There is one value that connects with many others, and that's the cross-cultural open mindset that this institution has.
For many of the students, this is their first trip to a big mountain area, first trip in a cable car, first trip in an environment like this, and so just immersing them in this environment will hopefully enhance their awareness of how fragile nature is. They're immersed around 4,000-meter peaks. You can't help but begin to experience the beauty and the magnificence of nature. When you can bring students to the ground level and say, look, here's a glacier that was twice this size just 30 years ago, and now it's half the size, and how much longer is it going to last? Elevate their awareness of ecosystems and alpine awareness. That's my mission in this academic travel. Many of them have been brought up in terms of growth and not thinking about the impact of their own consumption, and hopefully that experience will encourage the students to do their best to save this planet.
I picked this academic travel because I was in between choosing politics and environmental science as my major, and this class is literally the perfect combination of the two. I think the most excited I was for the hike today, and especially seeing the Matterhorn. And that was kind of a full circle moment for me.
During this travel, we not only took many hikes throughout the area, looked at the landscape, but with that we learned different ways to incorporate sustainability and also visualized future sustainability with the example of Zermatt being completely eco-friendly.
So I asked Marcus, who lives in Zermatt, if he would be willing to take my group of 20 students up to glaciers, to actually walk across glaciers with crampons and ropes so we could actually feel the energy of the glacier. We have tried to minimize our carbon footprint on this particular trip. While we're here, we're doing mostly walking, but it goes beyond the carbon footprint. And there's so much beauty in our backyard that we often forget to look at it on our way somewhere else.
Being a person who has now seen climate change firsthand, I can put my experiences and views into effect and hopefully convince my friends and peers that it's something that we all have to come together and solve. My academic travel experience has given me overall push to pursue what I really love. I had a blast at Franklin. It's a great experience that I had, and live with it through the rest of my life. It's amazing.
Young people, they're the ones that are on the vanguard, so to speak, of developing methodologies, developing alternatives. They're the ones that are going to carry the torch to at least build awareness and an understanding of what the nature of the issues are and the nature of the problems.
We were all in the airport, and we had just come out of the main island covered in dirt. In a globalizing world, we have to coexist, and part of coexisting is shedding your layers of comfort and stepping into somebody else's shoes and seeing the world the way they do, and then trying to make that world a better place so that when you go home, when you go to sleep at the end of the day, you know that your footprints made a difference.
Now, looking back on my overall academic experience, I still remember every single thing I learned. Facts that a lot of people wouldn't know, and it's so enlightening even to come back. Something that I really learned from Franklin is you can just take the chance because it will turn out good.
There is an increasing need to get to know each other better, to get to know other civilizations, to get to know other languages, customs, creeds, beliefs, and the academic travel was created under that same premise. I cannot think of a future in which the academic travel would be separated from Franklin, because actually Franklin was created under the academic travel spirit.
Something that will never change is Franklin's core values of being sustainable, a globalist, experiential, and in a small, close community.
The students that have done these academic travels and have come to Franklin will frequently say that it changed their lives. And I would say the same thing about myself. Franklin is 50 years old, but it has retained the essentials of a personalized learning environment, a strong, purposeful, international focus that goes beyond merely studying, but in fact living and seeing for themselves this international dimension of contemporary life.